Okay, welcome to this Orderflows.com presentation. Is the overnight session in the Emini S&P tradable, or should I not bother trading at night? First, a brief disclaimer. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to buy or sell a futures contract or make any other type of investment decision. Futures trading contains substantial risk and is not for every investor. An investor could potentially lose all or more than the initial investment. Risk capital is money that can be lost without jeopardizing one's financial security or lifestyle. Only risk capital should be used for trading, and only those with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Okay, first of all, let me just say that that's not me in this photo, but the point I'm trying to make is the markets are open 24 hours a day, pretty much. I mean, they close for like 30 minutes in the E-minis, but from Sunday night until Friday afternoon, the market's open. Now, does that mean you have to trade around the clock, or can you find times of days that can trade? And now, most people have, most people that are aspiring to be a full-time trader have regular jobs, regular 9-to-5 jobs they have to go to. So, I get a question, fairly often, what's my, what are my choices? I can't watch the market during the day because I have a regular job. Can I trade the E-mini S&P at night, or early morning? Is there enough volume in there, or are the moves enough that that it's worth worth the time to sit in front of the screen? Okay, so on this slide this is from the CME. This is their infograph that they sent out about a month or two ago. And what it is, it's the liquidity during Asian trading hours. And so active markets deliver opportunities throughout the Asian day based on 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Singapore time. Now, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Singapore time, right now, today is April 12th. So we're in daylight savings right now. So 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. works out to 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. Chicago time. So what it's telling you is saying, on this this right-hand side, on average, 20% of these electronic trades for the trading day take place during Asian trading hours. That's 20%. It's decent. So basically 20% until 7 a.m. Chicago time. Now, it doesn't include the reopening time. The reopening time is actually can be pretty active. You can get a few thousand contracts trading in the first 5 minutes of the S&Ps, which is very decent. You could easily move. A fund can easily move about 50 to 100 million dollars notional value in E-mini S&Ps. In the first 5 minutes, no problem. Even on the open, you could bang out at least 3, 4, 500 lots on the open with maybe moving the market a half a point. That's 2 ticks, 3 ticks, depending on the day of the week. Obviously, some days are going to be more active than others. A good starting point, the Sunday night reopen, when the market reopens electronically on Sunday night, that's the first time since it's closed on Friday. So you had, all Friday evening, Saturday, and, most of Sunday, in the event something happens somewhere around the world, that's the first market that you have to trade. I remember when JP Morgan, basically bought out Bear Stearns. It was, I was in Singapore at the time. It was a it was a nut house at that time on when the market reopened. You're getting orders for, 3, 4, 5,000 lots to be, to be executed, best can, at the market. And I mean, granted, those are, rare events, but, when news happens over the weekend, the first market that you have to trade is going to be that electronic reopen. So there is good liquidity, there. Now that said, just sort of break it down. I'm just going to talk a bit about the E-mini S&P. To a lesser extent, the notes. The E-mini S&P, 13%. You think, well, hey, 13%. That's not much. But number-wise, what is it? It's 300,000 contracts. More or less. Imagine coming into the morning, you've already traded 300,000 lots. That's a lot. Back in the old days, when there's a trading pit, 300,000 contracts would be, and I think, the big S&Ps, back in the heyday, was trading, maybe 90,000 a day or something like that. In most contracts, that would be, most contracts would kill to have that sort of volume on a daily basis. Now, granted, E-mini S&Ps, are their own animal, and you get a lot of volume in there for a lot of different reasons. But, hey, 300,000 is nothing to, to turn your nose up at. Contracts like 10 years is very similar. They trade about a quarter of their daily contract volume there. Crude oil, 15%. It's 159,000. By 7 a.m. It's decent. Now the difference, between say like the crude oil and E-mini S&P, Eurodollars top it out at 686,000. However, the Eurodollars, you have all the different years. You got the red months, the green months, all the basically got the whole curve going out there. So 686 is spread out among how many years worth of contracts. E-mini S&P is just basically the front month contract. Same with 10-year notes. Crude oil, yeah, most of the volume is going to be in the lead month, the lead contract. But to a lesser extent, there's a few other expiry dates that people are trading as well. But obviously, crude oil is a contract a lot of people, have their, are watching on. I'd be curious to see what the breakdown is for crude oil starting at, it's 4 a.m., which is when, Brent really starts to be active. That's the old Brent crude trading hours, back when the IPE was in existence. So, but people, obviously Asia is a big consumer of crude oil. 5-year notes, similar to 10s. It's a very thick contract where there's a lot of, a lot of people trading 10 years against bonds, 10 years against 5 years, 5 years against Bobble, 10 years against Bunds. Gold. Now, gold, actually, I'm a bit surprised gold is on there. But, obviously, it just a lot of different exchanges have gold contracts. Pretty much every exchange. In Japan, there's the Tocom gold contract, which is actually a very popular contract to trade. Well, in Japan at least, but India's got gold contracts. Singapore's got, I think, 2 different gold contracts. Malaysia's even got a gold contract. Hong Kong's got a gold contract. Even though, these other exchanges have contracts, doesn't mean the volume is that great. They trade a couple hundred contracts a day. The problem is, every exchange wants to have a gold contract nowadays. So I'm a bit surprised gold. I'm not sure about that number, but that's what CME put out. This is from the CME, so I'm just surprised. That's all. Aussie dollar, I'm not surprised with that. Obviously, it's the Asian hours is when the Aussie dollars is most active. It seems, just because Australia is on the other side of the world from the U.S. and most of their activity is going to be during the Australian hours. Copper, I'm not surprised. China's a big trader of copper, and obviously you have LME that they're trading it against, as well as copper in China that people are trading it against. So really the one that kind of catches my eye a bit was the gold. I'm a bit surprised that it's as much as 60,000. But, it's on there, so, it's on there. Now, again, 20% of the volume for, on average, 20% of these contracts, the volume is overnight. And you may think 20,000, no, that's not much, but I'll tell you, I remember the times when 60,000 in gold used to be considered a lot during the day, or crude 159,000. But S&Ps, it's decent. Now again, it's spread out over 12 hours from basically 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. Chicago time. This is an Asian file. This was created and sent out to the Asian brokers, but you just changed it. It's a 13-hour difference. So 300,000 coming into 7 a.m. is decent. Now a lot of moves happen obviously overnight these days. The world is it's around the clock, the market nowadays. So lots of times there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in Europe these days, or even in the Middle East, and that news is going to come out when you're asleep. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is this is a footprint chart. This is the Orderflows footprint chart basically at the reopen, 1600 hours. Now, talking about, say you have a full-time job and you can only trade, you work 9 to 5, you can trade in the evenings. The reopen, it's kind of tricky actually. Their reopening time, that's why it's not 1600. That's when it closed. But the reopen, 5 p.m. Chicago time. You get a few periods with some decent volume. So like 5 minutes after you got this one bar, it's 1,500 contracts traded. Just a big order went through the market, in that minute. But then what happens? It just basically goes flat on you, sideways, and you're trading over the next, how many minutes? This is a minute chart, so each bar is 1 minute. You're seeing 50, 25, 28, 26. You get a few bars, you get some flurry of action, a couple hundred, here and there. But until the Asian markets open up, which is Nikkei, I think is at 7:30 in Singapore, which is what really the first major, well, I say the first major, but you got the Aussie SPY open, a little bit ahead of it. But once those Asian markets start to open, then the volume in the S&P starts to pick up, because there are people that trade S&P against Nikkei, believe it or not. They sit there and then they arbit. One goes up, they buy, they sell one, like that. They're trading one against the other. So you're seeing it start to pick up, and the volume, 7 p.m. is starting to get active. Now you're seeing 400, 300, 400, 300 every minute. There's decent volume. So the market's starting to move really. On the chart, it's putting in full point moves in a minute, which before it really wasn't. So this is obviously some little flurry of activity here when the Asian markets start to open. Then it slows down, because the problem with Asia is things they pick up and they slow down. They have a lunch break and things like that. These Asians, they're big on their lunch breaks, but the problem is if you've ever sat in front of the screen and tried to trade S&Ps at night, it's very boring sometimes. And I mean, unless there's something happening, say there's a press conference. The president's going to make a speech or something, maybe people will react off of it, after the speech is done. But, for the most part, it can be like watching paint dry. So, imagine, you're trading S&Ps last night, at 20:53 at, what time is that? 20:53, that's just before 9 o'clock Chicago time. You decide to get long. Well, you're long here at 35.5, and my gosh, that's just before 9 o'clock, and you got to sit through all this flatlining. Now it's an hour, and you really haven't moved very much. You moved half a tick, half a point. It's gotten down to 35. And it's already 10 o'clock at night, and it's really not moving. It's very frustrating when you're trying to trade a footprint chart, and you're getting bars like this where it's just basically one bar, or one line. You get one trade on either side of it, and oftentimes it really doesn't pick up until 1 a.m. Chicago time. So now we're at 11, and we're still trading 20.35 and a half. You're talking in 2 hours, the market hasn't moved. I mean, it's moved, but it's still trading within a point. I mean, right now it's at unchanged from I said I just picked that level on the chart, but it's really not going anywhere. So and it's hard really to trade a footprint chart, or at least a minute chart, when the market's not moving, because you're gonna just pull your hairs out. If you're trading some sort of range-based chart, and you're getting no new bars basically for how many hours. So now we're coming 1 a.m. Chicago time here. Okay, 1:15. It's starting to pick up a little bit more. Volume starting to come in. It's a bit erratic, but you're getting some, because this is the time when Europe is, people are coming into their office in Europe. So, you're starting to pick up. 2 a.m. is really the time when things really start to pick up. So, now you're seeing consistently normal volumes above 100. You're seeing 600, 500, 400, 200, 400, 700, 1,000 at 2 o'clock, 1,700, 1,100. And, you're getting bars with, that got movement in them. And 2 o'clock, again, now it's 2:30. You're finally putting in moves. You're moving, from 41 down to 35. That's a 5-point move. So, is it worth trading during the Asian hours in the S&Ps? I don't think so, honestly. There's other contracts that I'd rather trade during that time. I mean, definitely during once the European session starts to open, because then you're going to get a lot more people trading. You got the whole, you got everyone in Germany, you got everyone in London coming in, sitting at their desks now, and they're trading. Europeans have a lot more, have a lot more exposure to the U.S. equity markets than Asians, because that's not true, because Asians do, but they've got their own contracts that they're so concerned about over there that they trade a lot of commodities that people in the Western world don't. But you're seeing now you're starting to see movements during the European hours, which is when you're trading, that's what you want. You don't want to see a lot of a whole lot of nothing. Now you're coming in 4 o'clock. Now you're going down. Oftentimes you're going to make your high or low in the European session, and that's oftentimes going to be a high or low that you're going to come back in and and retest during the U.S. day session. Okay, so the next question that I get is, well, what's a good Asian product? What's a good contract that I can trade in the evening? I live in California, and by the time I get home, it'd be perfect if I could trade something during the Asian hours. Because obviously, S&Ps, the volume, the liquidity is there, but the price action is not there. It's just not moving most of the time. Well, a good contract is the Nikkei contract that's traded on Simex. It's unfortunate, though. I mean, if you're trading through NinjaTrader brokerage, it's not available. It's unfortunate because one of NinjaTrader's clearing brokers for their IB is Phillips, which is actually a Singapore-based brokerage, and Phillips itself offers all the contracts, but I think sort of in their arrangement with Dorman, who was the original clearing partner for NinjaTrader, that Dorman's a U.S.-based FCM. That's very solid. It's a very good company. I have an account with NinjaTrader and it clears Dorman, and honestly, it's very stress-free. I've never had any issues whatsoever. I just wish that they would offer additional contracts like the Asian markets, but that's fine. You could still trade it. If you have a broker that offers SGX contracts. AMP does, Interactive Brokers does. You could go to Singapore. There's, if you need a broker in Singapore, I could recommend someone. Just send me an email. You could open your account there in Singapore, and you could have, a lot of other contracts that you probably wouldn't even have thought of. You can trade Hang Seng, you can trade, all the Japan products, Malaysia products, Thai products, pretty much, everything in the world you can trade out of an account in Singapore. Interesting though, a quick side note, it is tax time this year. If you're in Singapore, there's no income tax on trading. The only tax that you're paying is a value-added tax, per contract, but it's just pennies basically per contract per lot traded. Actually, a lot of, that's why a lot of big traders have actually moved to Singapore. Last I heard, Paul Rotter, who's famous for the flipper, I believe he had actually moved to Singapore and set up his fund there. Singapore it's a nice place to live if you can afford it. It's gotten very expensive though over the last 10 years. But the SGX Nikkei is a great contract. I mean, obviously, what's so great about it? Well, it's got movement. This is 9:16 Chicago time. It went down to 15,890. And it had a 15,980. So it's basically a 100-point move. Now a point, Nikkei trades in nickels. So 890 to 895 to 900 is every nickel move is worth about, depending on what the exchange rate is in the yen, is about I don't know, $21 or something. So you're talking a move from here to here, which is basically a 100-tick move is close to almost $500. So it's a market that follows order flow. I mean, order flow is something that works on pretty much every market as long as there's decent volume. So it's a contract that you can trade when if you can only trade at during the Asian hours if you're based in the U.S. It's hard if you're living in Europe because it's the middle of your night in Europe. But it's a contract. Even if you're just making, 1 or 2 ticks, I know some people, say, you're buying it, here, and you're really taking it up, 1 or 2 ticks, from 9:30 to 9:40, you're talking $40, 3 ticks is, $60. That's, 2.5 ticks in the Nikkei is 1 point in the S&Ps, right? So, if you're selling, you get a signal here. You got your high, you got your divergence. Here you got your ratio, and you're getting short. In here somewhere at 950, it comes right back up to this level and sells off. You're able to, this is what 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So it's $150, $150 move. Just right here in these 2 bars. So it's a good contract to look at if you're looking to trade something and you can't necessarily trade S&Ps because the S&Ps aren't moving. I showed you the S&P chart and it was just like a flat line. It was trading over that 1 hour, basically not going anywhere. It was basically trading 20, 35 and a half. Now, another good contract to trade if you can't trade during the day, U.S. trading day, is the Eurostoxx. It trades in Eurex. It is available through NinjaTrader, through pretty much every broker. It's a very liquid contract. It trades good size. The Eurostoxx is basically the main European stock market. Now, Germany, obviously, they trade the Dax as well, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. Now, the Dax is not for everybody. The Dax is a contract that is very volatile. It trades much more volatile than, say, crude. But the Dax is a big margin hog. It's 20,000 euros. The Eurostoxx is much less. Now, the Eurostoxx, one tick is worth 10 euros. And, but you can get very low margins, around sub 1 euro per tick. So, in and outs is probably going to cost you, less than 2 euros. So, you got to take that into account where, it's a market where, 2840 to 2841 is one tick. And, that's 10 euros. So, if you're scalping for, 1 or 2 ticks, 10%, your first tick that you trade is going to be, it's actually, giving up, you're 20%. So 20%, yeah, 20% is going to your commission. So, if you have it's a good contract though, but it's a good contract because there's a lot of volume in there. So it's easy to get in, easy to get out. When you're trading, that's something that you want to look for. And it does have very nice moves. So you're talking a move from 28.50 here, this 28.40, to 28.50 is a 10 euro move. That's, 100 euros right there. That's a move that took only, 10 minutes. It came back off. 28.50 down, even went lower, 28.30, and it's another, down to 28.30. That's another 200 euro move. So, it has capacity for, for trading. It follows order flow very nicely. For example, here you have a divergence with the ratio. It failed though, but 10 minutes later you get another divergence with the ratio in the next bar. And, it's a nice move from 28, 28.34, 28.32 area, call it 28.33, right up here to, 28.48, that's a nice, 15, 16 point move. It's 150 points, 150 euros right there. And even did go higher, but I'm assuming you're getting out somewhere in here. Now, it's contract. It trades. It starts early morning, Chicago time. What time is that? About 1 a.m. That's why you see the really, S&Ps start to pick up around 1 a.m. But 2 a.m. I believe 2 a.m. is the cash opening time on the Eurostoxx, and but it's a contract that you can trade. You don't have to wake up super early. You don't have to wake up on the open to trade it. You can jump in, at 3 a.m. Chicago time. So depending on where you're living, it's a contract you can also consider. If you want to trade something before the U.S. Open, it's a nice contract to trade. It's something that you don't have to be tied down to the S&Ps. I think it moves better than the S&Ps during the European hours. You could also trade it during the European hours because it goes, once the European markets come in, actually once the American markets come in, it's something that's there for you to trade as well. I think you should stick to one contract if you're trading in equities. Probably during the U.S. session, you're probably better off trading the S&Ps. But definitely, prior to the U.S. session, you should look to the Eurostoxx. It's a nice contract to trade. You get nice moves. Again, you got another divergence with the ratio after it, and you're talking around 28.65 area, and it came right down. It's pretty, it did pop up, tested area before selling off, and but it was a nice move down to the 28.50 move, 52, 53 area. So it's a nice, 12 tick move, pretty quick in 10 or 15 minutes. There's plenty of opportunities during the morning session for you to trade this contract. So just remember, when you're trading, you don't have to sleep with an alarm clock next to you. The markets, there's markets to trade around around the clock. So, whether you're working nights, you're working during the day, you're working, the Asian shift, you're working the graveyard shift, there's always a market to trade. You could be there, during U.S. hours, yeah, definitely go with the E-minis. During European hours, look towards the Eurostoxx. During the Asian hours, look to the Nikkei. There's plenty of markets out there to trade. So before I leave, this is a picture of Singapore. People sometimes think Singapore is some backwater, where it's just lumped in together with the rest of the third world and Asia. But it's actually not. It's extremely modern. If you ever get a chance to travel, definitely visit Singapore. The old exchange used to be back here. Where was the building? Behind this building. It was I believe in this building. It was the old Cymex exchange. But all this area is just full of banks. It's really like they're trying to make it like the Switzerland of Asia, and it is. It's a wonderful place to live and work. It's just getting a bit expensive. Food is nice, but it's got a low tax rate, and and people speak English there, which is nice if you're an English speaker. So thanks for watching this video. And any questions, shoot me an email. Don't shoot me, but send me an email. Or you go to my website, www.orderflows.com. There's my contacts on there. There's again, you can send me an email or a message through that through the website. Just real quick, Citibank is in, I don't know which building, but Bank of America is here. JP Morgan's in this building. A lot of big local banks here, all in this area here. This is all this the that's not the financial district. They're rebuilding the financial district over here. But really, everything in here is all finance companies. A lot of hedge funds. Everything is out there. So thanks for watching this, and catch you later in the next video.